Hi everyone, my name is Olga Aristova and I am a former member of the Center for Entrepreneurial Finance, of which I was a member of from fall 2018 to spring 2020. I graduated Stony Brook in May 2020, so very recently, with a double major in economics and applied math and a double minor in computer science and pure math. And I've been working as a quantitative analyst at Citigroup at their headquarters in Manhattan since then. And Dr. Chan asked me to record a short video with some job hunting and interview tips for current members of the lab, as well as share my own experience during my search for employment. So to get started, I will just share the tips that I have. So my first tip is to know what you want when you are searching for jobs, which I know is very difficult if you're a college student, since you've never worked before in the professional sphere. But if you take advantage of the resources that are available to you, I think it becomes a little bit easier to narrow down what you want to do. One tool that I used while I was at Stony Brook that I don't know if it's still available were the Vault guides. Vault is the company that creates these guides, and I think the Career Center had a subscription to these. If you click around on their website or send them an email, you can find out whether or not they still pay for this service. But these were just very long industry guides that spoke about different positions available, in say banking or in the insurance industry or whatever, and the skills and the day-to-day life of someone who has a certain position. And that was really helpful for me because it allowed me to kind of match my interests and skill sets to jobs that are available out there in the professional world. Another thing that I did when trying to narrow down what I wanted to do is I clicked through people's LinkedIn pages, which is probably a little bit weird, but I would quite literally Google quantitative analyst at whatever bank and just click on someone who had a senior position and just scroll through their LinkedIn page and see what their career path was. And that was really helpful in just figuring out how person got from point A to point B, what they majored in college, and then the different positions that they held to get to where they are today. And I think that's important just for college students to realize that there's not one path from point A to point B. There's generally a lot of different paths to get, to some position that you may want in the future. Also good to keep in mind that what you are applying for today and what you're interested today may not be what you want to do in 10, 20, 30 years down the line. So finding jobs, that you can, have a different position, have teach you a lot of different things and gives you a broad skill set to pursue something else later in the future, might be of something of interest to you, because, just because when you're 20 or you're 22 or whatever, you might probably not, what you're interested in now is not going to be what you're interested in when you're 35, 40, 45, whenever. Secondly, my other tip would be to reach out to recruiters and people that work at companies that you're applying to, when you have the opportunity to do so. So the way that I got my job at Citi was I applied for their quantitative analyst summer internship program, and then their software development program, the recruiter and I think a few Stony Brook students that either worked at Citi then or had internships at Citi also spoke at this talk. I think it was in the Javits Center or something, and I decided to go to it, listen through the presentation, and then I came up to the recruiter afterward and said, hey, thank you for coming to Stony Brook, it was a great talk, it seems like a great program. I have a minor in computer science, but I think with my applied math and economics background, I'd be a better fit for the quantitative analysis program. The recruiter was really nice. She was like, yeah, sure, let me get your info over to the quantitative analysis recruiter, who later got in touch with me. I spoke to her, spoke to a few other people in the bank, had my first interview, got invited back to a second interview until I was offered an internship position during the summer of 2019, after which I was offered full-time employment. So I think that goes to show that had I not spoken, gone and like to this tech talk for an hour and a half and then had this 5-minute conversation with like the software development recruiter, I probably wouldn't have the full-time job that I have now. And I feel like college students sometimes fall into this trap where they just send out their application and resume to like 100 different places and then just sit around and like wait for a response, which works for some people. Like I know that this is something that does work and people do get jobs like this. But it also helps, to have some quality applications as well, where you have some more personal connections with people at the bank, just because they're like your bank or like wherever industry you're applying to. So that like your resume stands out from the other resumes and like people know who you are as like an actual person versus like your application and like your resume. My third tip would be just to talk to people and talk to as many people as possible, which I know is also very scary when you're a college student, and you're still kind of a young adult and not really sure, don't really know much about the professional world. When I was a member of the center, there were plenty of opportunities to speak to Long Island business owners or people that worked in the financial services industry. And I went to these things even though they made me really uncomfortable, just because I felt like I stood out as someone who was like 20, surrounded by all these people, that already like had like pretty long careers. But it's really important to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, especially when you're starting out in your career. There'll be plenty of things that just make you uncomfortable just because you've never experienced them before and everything is going to be new. So just making yourself comfortable with that feeling is a really great just professional development thing to do for yourself. And then of course you never know like what a relationship may eventually turn into. And then my fourth tip would be just to take advantage of all the opportunities that college has to offer. You only get to do your degree once. So it's really kind of great to take advantage of, all the new people you can meet and all the different skills that you can develop. And I feel like a lot of college students also forget that once you get the job, you actually have to do the job. Like it's great, you spend all this time trying to get a job and then you get there and you're like, oh wait, I actually have to do this now. So putting yourself in a position where you can stand out from your coworkers and like kind of be able to catch on quickly to what you're supposed to be doing at your new employment is really important. And I applied to be a research assistant for the Center of Entrepreneurial Finance the summer after my freshman year. And quite frankly, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but it turned out to be a really great experience. I learned a lot, made some really great connections, and I think that really helped me just starting out my first job at City. So, different classes, if there's a class that can teach you a new skill or like a project that the lab is doing that seems really interesting, I highly recommend that you try to pursue, take advantage of that opportunity just to see if you can learn something new and just find out maybe, find a new interest. So those are all the tips that I had for current members of the lab. I will link my email at the bottom here. I'm not always great at replying to emails. I am aware of this, but I appreciate, if anyone has any questions, I just about my experience at Stony Brook, what classes I took, my experience at City, my experience job hunting, anything at all. Please feel free to reach out and I'll do my best to get back to you. And I'd like to thank the Center of Entrepreneurial Finance, for asking me to film this little video for you guys. And thank you for listening and good luck job hunting.